Careful, your collection may have to deal with some opposing orcs. Here's your look at the Asmus Toys The Lord of the Rings Lurtz, the ultimate 8-inch action figure. Asmus Toys is excited to bring you Lurtz. The figure features an authentic, realistic, and fully detailed likeness of Lurtz from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Lurtz stands 8 inches tall and features 5 points of articulation. If you guys want to get your hands on Lurtz before Lurtz gets his hands on you, it's available right now over on Asmus Toys websites. I'll provide the link down below, and the price point for Lurtz is $30. Not bad at all. I'd also like to thank, of course, the folks over at Asmus Toys that did provide the sample of the brand new Lord of the Rings Lurtz action figure. We could have a look at this review. Now, where to measure this guy? Because technically, if we go to the top of the figure's head, and including, of course, the stand he's standing on top of, Lurtz is about 8.5 inches in height. Although the sword that he wields, of course, will make him a little bit taller. So you guys want to go from there? Okay, maybe we'll go to the top of his sword. The tallest point on Lurtz is, in fact, the point of the sword. And with that, the action figure is about 10.5 inches in height, or it's going to be about 27 centimeters tall. Breaking him down and getting him back to basics, this is what Lurtz looks like when you first get him out of his plastic prison. The figure comes included with a display stand first. The display stand itself is pretty nicely decorative. You can see the way they've actually textured the side of it, given this nice pattern work. I was surprised to actually see that the base was hollow. In fact, I was almost expecting that the base to be a solid bit of plastic. The plastic itself almost feels a little rubbery, but that's not bad at all. You've got a little bit of a rock face, or a little bit of stones that he stands on top of, and then you've got yourself a couple of metallic posts that, of course, the figure's boots will attach then onto, because, of course, on the bottoms of his soles, he does have some peg holes. So, of course, those are going to fit onto the display base itself. You could technically have the figure displayed without it. Although, when you start adding things like his shield, when you start adding things like his orc sword, and when he comes included, of course, with his other arm, the thing he probably will be most happy to use, then it's going to cause the figure to be a little bit more front heavy. So I probably recommend putting him on display base. So what we'll do first is let's get the figure onto display base. I guess before we also do that as well, he's not technically a statue. He's an action figure, but he does have limited articulation. So we'll kind of get down to looking at that first. The head's going to only be on a swivel that moves this much. I know for a second it almost looked like he might have missed it. He goes this far over and he goes this far back. That's it. The arm does also rotate back and forth, but only rotates here at the mid bicep area, and the figure does also have a swivel in his glove. He has a swivel also in his waist, and he does also have swivels in his legs. That's it. So if you're looking for a superposable version of Lurtz, he's not going to obviously have a lot of it. Lurtz isn't going to have a whole lot of it, but he does make up for it, I think, some really nice detailing. Again, we're going to take the time to put this guy together. Now, when he gets out of packaging, I guess they did it to reduce the footprint space of the box that he comes included inside. The arm is actually a separate piece. Now, unfortunately, though, I did have to heat this in order to get the arm back into the socket here. When you first take this out, you'll notice that the peg is about the same size as the hole. So then to get this in place, I couldn't get it the first time. And in fact, even now to do this after the plastic is now cooled, I would definitely recommend when you get this guy out and you're ready to put the arm in place, heat the arm, I would say, in hot water, or you can also just use the hairdryer trick as well. And then from there, sort of wiggle the arm back and forth till eventually you get into the socket. You'll have to, unfortunately, excuse me, because now I've taken the time to remove everything. It's going to be a little harder to get him back with the arm in place. But again, you just want to wiggle it back and forth. Without it fully being soft, you'll notice that it does leave behind a gap space. So again, you just want to make sure they heat this up enough that this is going to stay properly in place when you first assemble this guy. It's the only little bit of assembly that really is required. From there, everything else is the things that he wields. So we're going to go ahead and, for example, and first take him on and put him on display base. Display base, literally, you're just going to take the metal posts here and line them up then to the holes provided on the bottoms of his boots. And just, again, wiggle this back and forth. You can have it, I mean, the way they've actually designed the base, let me just go ahead and take his feet off right now. You can kind of see he's got a permanent footprint into the stone. So it kind of gives you an idea of which way the figure's supposed to be facing. Then from there, we're just going to go ahead and take the back heel, line everything up. And now he's on top of his display base, giving him not only the height, but also some additional stability when it comes to him holding, like, for example, the shield. According to what I'm looking at online, it seems to be a material that they've only used is plastic. And yet, the shield itself almost has a cool to the touch feel that I thought for a second it might have been metal. It seems though to be plastic, so just be careful when it comes to attaching the shield. The shield itself does have a really nice chrome finish. It looks like they've also splashed across a few little settling marks of mud and blood, whatever terrain that he's also walking through. It's also got some nice scratches added in there as well. Adding the shield may be a little bit difficult, simply because, first of all, you have to turn the arm. If you have the arm already, the way he gets out of the box, there's no way you're going to be able to attach the shield. He actually has to holster the shield on the side of his arm. So you just want to twist the arm out. And at least I would say the plastic that they use for the hands is soft enough that you can then take the hands, just pry the fingers away from the palm, of course, and then just fit it through the handle. Again, you want to be careful doing this because while the shield is plastic, there's also the likelihood there as well. You also want to make sure too, I don't know if you can see it. See how the middle section of the glove almost has like an indentation to it? That's really where the handle has to sit, far enough in there so then he can have it just resting literally against his arm. And then from there, you can then just obviously twist the arm to get the desired look that you want. I like to kind of just bring the arm just in a little bit. And you can either have it rotated out this way, or you can also bring the shield in also a little bit inward as well. I kind of like to have it a little bit more just off to the side parallel to his arm. And then again, you're going to go ahead and take then the orc. Again, I don't know if it would be a sword, a dagger. Probably be a little bit longer than a dagger, but either way, it's nicely detailed. You got, again, like a little bit of aged and weathering added to there as well. They almost look like they've burred the edge. And while it's not sharp, obviously, to draw any blood on this guy at least, it looks like it certainly could inflict some serious damage when, of course, he's in battle. And the same rule applies, essentially. Like, the hands themselves are fairly soft plastic, so it's pretty easy, in fact, to actually just bring the fingers away from the palm and then just get his weapon of choice in his hand. And again, you can have displayed where, it's entirely up to you how you want to have it displayed. I kind of have it where, I kind of like to have it where the blade, the spike part, is further back on it. And that's what it looks like when it's all said and done. The only thing, again, about this, just bring it a little bit more closer so you guys can actually see. The only thing about it, though, is unfortunately just with now removing the arm, because I had to do that for the purpose of showing you guys how he broke down at the beginning when you first get him out. Unfortunately, it did mean that the peg then cooled, but I would certainly go back just before I put this guy on the shelf and heat the peg again in hot water so I can get that as more in there as it is right now. You can see like there's a little bit of a gap space in between like the socket and what would have been the rest of his body. Getting, though, a closer look, though, at Lurtz. What a nice-looking figure. Again, using the term action figure, it doesn't really have as much action as maybe what you would expect. It doesn't have any, like, shoulder articulation. I suppose, technically, you could rotate this arm, seeing it sitting on a peg. But you would obviously want, I would like to think you would probably want to follow the same form as his body's kind of dictating right now. Also getting a closer look at his head sculpt. I really like the paint that they applied to this, giving him kind of a more purplish tint to his skin. You can see as well that he has the marking here on the front of it, or the top of his forehead, and just overall anger on the front of his face. I like the discoloration that they've added to the teeth. A little harder to see, hopefully, but hopefully you guys still can able to see it. You can see the way how well they've painted the eyes. For something as so small as this, again, he's got some really nice sculpting on the back of his hair. It's going to limit the articulation, but I think really the hair wouldn't have been the problem anyways. There really is limited articulation when it comes to the neck, but I think really more of this is actually better suited for being more considered a statue and not necessarily an action figure. I think by really giving it the title of an action figure, people tend to then think it's going to have a lot more posability to it. And it's kind of more relegated to the territory, I feel like, of retro figures, where again, like it was more of a statue, but it was a statue that had posable parts to it. Getting, though, a closer look at his armor. His armor is mostly done here in black, but every so often you get a little few indications of kind of brushed on gray, not to mention as well the silver that he has in the armor plating on the front of his chest. Lower skirting here also is sculpted very nicely from Asmus's part. And you see he also has himself a little sashed bag that he has on the side of his belt. Some decent paint is also afforded here to the front calf guards that he has as well, which seems to match the same similar colors that he has to the shield and also the sword that he draws. You can see as well it's got some really nice kind of wear and tear added to it. Again, some surface mud or whatever else that's settled to it as well. And it really, again, really nice looking piece. It's also quite affordable, too. I mentioned at the beginning of this review that the statue or action figure of Lurtz here is about $30. I think that's a good price to start looking at when it comes to statue pieces like this. Because, again, like while it would be considered, obviously, on their website as an action figure, Even like in the box, they indicate it as an Ultimate 8 action figure series. I don't know if I necessarily would consider it an action figure. Not that it's dismissing picking this piece up. In fact, I think it's a great looking piece to be picking up as a statue. It's a statue I feel that has posable parts to it, but I don't know if I would necessarily consider it as an action figure. Lurtz, though, still has some great detailing done to him. And again, what limitations he may have when it comes to the posability department of things, I still think he makes for a great looking showpiece to put on the shelf. If you're a big fan of Lord of the Rings, might be one you may want to consider, especially considering the price that Asmus Toys sets this guy at being $30. If you've ever collected any of the older Movie Maniac figures, then you know the territory that the Lord of the Rings Lurtz is going to be covering as well. Limited articulation points, swivel joints in the head, the shoulders, the hands, the waist, and the lower legs are really all that this guy's capable of doing. And really, when it also comes to things that are moving, there's obviously things that are going to be not only limited by the way they've sculpted it, but things like his extended arm, for example, that he holds the orc blade in hand. You're not obviously going to be able to move it too much anyways, because it's going to break the sculpting up that they put there in the first place. More, again, where you'd be able to really get the more luxury of rotating this guy comes in his waist and comes in his other arm, the one that's actually holding the shield right now. You can actually swivel that arm easily out. You can also swivel the hand, so you can change the way that he's actually posed with the shield on his other hand. It's a nice looking figure, and in no ways, by saying this guy's limited articulation, I hope not to be a detriment to the figure. In fact, I think where Asmus has sold this guy the best is not in the posability necessarily department, but more the way he's been painted and the way he's been sculpted. In both of those departments, I think he excels very well in. And also considering that Asmus is selling this guy over on their website for only $30, whether he is posable or not, I think you get still a great looking statue piece that you put on the shelf. I think, if anything, they probably should have not called this Ultimates 8 action figure series, because again, action figures sort of tells the collectors that there's things that are more posable on him than what he actually does possess. In fact, if anything, I probably think that they should have called it like the Ultimate Statue series, which of course it just happens to be a statue, but it happens to also be a statue that has things that move on it. Either way, if you guys are interested and want to get the Asmus Toys Lord of the Rings Lutz for yourself, Lurtz is available. Not Lutz. Lurtz is available, yes, over on their website for, again, I can't believe it, $30 only. If you guys are interested, click the link down below in the video description. That will take you on over to Asmus Toys website, where you can get Lurtz for yourself, as well as the other collectibles that they've been doing for the Lord of the Rings this whole time. Speaking of which, I'd like to as well thank the folks over at Asmus Toys that did provide the sample of Lurtz that we can have a look at in this review. If you guys are also liked this video, first of all, want to hit with a like. But if you guys are interested to stick around for more and check out more content that the person behind the camera is putting on a regular basis, then make sure if you haven't already done so that you hit that subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. Popping up also, if you have a little bit of time on your hands before you start conquering any worlds, popping up will also be a playlist of other things I've looked at from Asmus in the past, in the present, and in the future will also be in that playlist as well. Definitely check that out if you have a little bit of time on your hands. And once again, guys, as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.